I have another surprise for you. I have a new segment that I have not revealed to you.
I'm
And
really
I,
impressed that you've kept any sort of surprise. I know you
Yeah,
well enough. This is hard. This is
yeah.
hard for you.
I don't know you as well as Gail does, obviously. But yeah, yeah, this is interesting.
so I did a bunch of brainstorming coming up with different segments. And so like throughout the season, I'll just kind of be springing them on you as we have so far. So this one I am tentatively calling the leadership lies. Um, and
Oh, the
I,
title is intriguing.
yeah,
Yes.
so welcome to Leadership Lies. We're gonna take kind of a polished sounding myth about leadership and then pressure test it, is kind of my hope. So kind of like the AATIs where I take a scenario. In this case, it's just something I read or heard about or I've literally heard in business before. And so I figured I'd try that on you and see what happens. I assume you're up for it?
Of
Oh,
course, count me in.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. Okay, so um, this is I'll unpack kind of the prompt here in a second, but the basic thing that I see surrounding this is that kind of like baseball, there is no crying in the workplace. That workplace and crying emotions are separate. So this is essentially it. Good leaders don't cry. So let's be honest, most workplaces still treat tears like a professional violation. But tears are not data, not a character flaw. They can still signal overwhelm, grief, compassion, moral conviction, or even relief. So the real question is not should leaders cry, it's when does emotion humanize a leader and deepen trust? And when does it turn into emotional leakage that puts your team in a caretaker role? So like, what's that line? Like, as a leader, you have to be a human being, and part of that is feeling emotions. And is there a place for tears in the workplace, and what does it look like?
Wow, those are some great questions.
I
Who? Oh, sorry, Dan. Go on.
no, you have an answer. Go.
No, I mean, I think I have a partial answer, and I was just
No,
going to
yeah, I want to
be
hear.
maybe a little self-disclosing as someone who is prone, maybe a bit more prone toward tears when there's strong emotion. Like, I think there's a place for them. I think the more I've given time and space and allowed that instead of, telling
Mhm.
myself the lie that tears are unprofessional, honestly, they come less often, right? When
Mhm.
there's space for it, because now I'm not fighting against this thing that I'm not supposed to do. And so it takes that worry and that load off my plate, and I can
Right.
kind of deal with it. Now, I think there is a potential for a leader to be in a emotional space where the dysregulation that can come with tears can feel manipulative or problematic or even tone deaf about something. So I do think you kind of like it in all relationships, you have to sort of be careful with your emotion and how you're showing up, and if you need to take time to unpack that and take care of yourself versus allowing your team to see that human side of you. I think that's true in all relationships. So
Yeah.
this is maybe just another complicated version of that.
I think there's some corollary to the work we do as therapists as well.
Sure.
Um, our, with the line, and Michael sort of gave the line in his intro. And the line is when it's no longer in service of the process and of the team and becomes in service of the individual who is expressing the emotion. Um, as a therapist, as psychologists, we don't, we're trained to not make the session is about the client. It's about the client's needs. That doesn't mean that I'm not a human being and may not have an emotional response to my client disclosure or to what we're discussing or to whatever I may feel outrage or sadness. Um, I might connect with some of the feelings they're experiencing, but that has to be in service of them. If it becomes about me, now it's problematic, and now I'm no longer helping them. And I think it's the same line for leadership: is when is it in service of the team and building the team up and helping the team and showing empathy for what the team is experiencing, and when is it about like, I need you to take care of me, which is no longer appropriate
I would
in the
add a
workplace.
third piece to
Yeah,
that though, which is
yeah.
joining, not just
Mm,
building or holding, but
excellent.
joining. We're
Yeah,
sitting here in a collective moment
right,
of something.
right.
Yeah.
And it has to be genuine.
Oh,
Like it's
yeah.
really important that because leaders are like the sort of I'm here with you messaging isn't real unless you really are here with them when you give the messaging. Um, Now, one thing to throw in there though is that where it feels in service of the individual rather than of the team is going to fall in a different space for each person.
Yeah.
So some people, if I'm a leader, some people on my team may be very comfortable with the expression of emotion and may feel supported by that and connected to that, and some may feel uncomfortable with it at a very different place. And I think I think we may want to err on the side of but I don't know. Like, what do you think? I mean, am I
Well, then I think you start touching on gender norms and opinions about those
sure
things.
do? Yeah.
How does it play if a male leader
Hmm.
delivers maybe terrible news and finds himself choked up and breaking down? And how does the team perceive that
Hmm.
individual versus a female leader delivering exactly the same news, choking up and breaking down? I think we have
Yeah.
more tolerance for her breaking down than him breaking down because of those gender norms and boxes we tend. Now, I don't know that this
Or
is
less tolerance in some cases.
or maybe sure, maybe less tolerance.
You know?
She's just being a weak woman,
Right.
but I
And
mean, I think it depends on the particular circumstance
right.
and
It
news, et
does.
cetera, right? Whether or not we deem it to be warranted. I think in the situation I was painting in my head, the news is extremely terrible,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then it's sort of a pass.
Right.
If it feels less terrible but still bad, we might belittle or somehow ascribe her to be too sensitive or something like that.
Right. I think that if this makes sense, being showing emotion because we're human,
Hmm.
um, and being in control of the situation and able to lead in a leadership role.
Hmm.
Like you're not expected to not have emotion, but do you let that emotion color your judgment in a way that doesn't help? And it's like if the leader still needs to fulfill their role to be in charge to kind of lead
Yeah.
and help the team along. So they're expressing the emotion, connecting with the emotion, but not overwhelmed by the emotion, because that's where perhaps you lose a bit of credibility because now like I need my leader to be there, and they're caught up in their own shit to the degree that they can't be there for the team, and where my perception of that is going to vary, but that's I think the for me one of those lines.
So
Sure. Yeah,
can
no,
I
I totally agree.
can I add a twist? I guess so. I was
Of course.
imagining a number of scenarios. Like when I was thinking about this, one of the things I thought about was like Jimmy Kimmel on his show. He frequently displays emotion about
Mhm.
things, and I think it makes some people uncomfortable. But he does a good job of like showing the emotion, kind of talking about it, addressing it, naming it, and then going, okay, closure, moving on, and running the show, right?
Mhm.
But in a workplace, if you have a personal tragedy as a leader, that sadness maybe doesn't have a place in the same conversation as if you expressed emotion about layoffs or shortfalls, right? Like, I think if somebody is getting bad news about layoffs, um, I don't know. When I have seen things like that happen, it's often with a cold expression like this is happening. We're very sorry. It's a canned HR approved messaging or whatever. But I've often wondered, like, what would happen if that leader actually showed remorse and sorrow? Like, would
It,
people take it more acceptingly? Or, like, I don't know. I'm just wondering
it,
about that.
I mean, it's an individual thing, and I think it depends again on whether or not that the degree to which that's perceived as genuine. Um, and that's a really risky one because sometimes leaders, that's a really risky one. And And again, I fall back to, is this emotion in service of the connection to the team, or is this in service of my own needs as a leader to be, and that's the dividing line. I believe, and maybe our listeners have different thoughts on whether or not leaders should or shouldn't ever show emotion or feeling. Um,
I love it. I think that's maybe a great place to leave it. Please send us something in the mailbag. We'd love to see your reactions and comments to that. And yeah, maybe the next leadership live won't be quite so serious, but this one, I guess I've just been thinking about. I mean, in the news, there've been a lot of layoffs and things like that, and that was specifically, I guess, kind of where my headspace was. But there are lots of reasons people show emotion, and we'd love to hear from people about how that would be received. And if you're a leader who's been in that role and you've expressed emotion, how did that go?